Hello, good morning. I hope that everybody is well. Well, another week has whizzed by. I just do not know where my life is going. It's been busy, done a little bit of stitching, done a lot of research and writing, and there's been proofs flying back and forth with the printers. Stitching wise, I've been working on a new project, and here is the little girl. She's a Martha, and she's a very sweet, very simple sampler. She's a skinny sampler. I am stitching samplers with a purpose on the new sampler wall I'm building in my home, and this one's going to fit in really nice. But for anybody else who's stitching this sampler, you might want to consider putting it on a spool. It's a great size for a spool, but I'm actually going to frame this one. The colours are really nice. Here's the colour palette. So pretty. Only 5 colours, and the little girl is doing so much with these 5 colours. I also like the way that she's varying up her dividing rows between the alphabets and the numbers. Very pretty. I'm just about to roll my scroll frame on. This is about halfway here, so she'll be this long again. And I will share her with you next week. She might even be a finish by next week. Yesterday we had a very busy day because there was a photo shoot of our next lot of samplers that have just been framed. So there's some really lovely releases due to come out throughout the summer. We've all been so busy in lockdown that we have this glut of models to release. In the week we released the beautiful Eliza Nisbet. Now, I've shown you this sampler before when it came from the model stitcher, who is Perette, who lives in Iceland. This sampler, it was so beautiful to hold the linen. The linen is 24 count rain barrel from Legacy Linen that we just aged slightly by tea dyeing. And if you want to tea dye, it's a very simple procedure. It's literally, you are brewing a mug of tea in a bowl, a larger size, so throw in a few tea bags, and salt. Salt fixes the staining. Put your linen in, let it stand for a little bit, swirl it around so that the water with the tea in gets all through the linen. When it's as dark as you want it, you take it out, you rinse it, and you dry it, and you iron it, and you're good to go. Now, Eliza Nisbet was stitched with wool, because the original sampler was stitched with wool, and I have the original sampler here. And again, this is a sampler that many of you would have seen in the Traditional Stitches newsletter, and when we were talking about the Anne Morrison Stitch Along. This antique sampler is actually the draw prize for everybody who completes Anne Morrison within the Stitch Along year. Everybody who completes her, their name will be put into a hat, and one lucky person will win this sampler. And it's in fabulous condition, really lovely condition. It's a very sort of worthy prize for somebody to win. Now, We chose the 24 count because it is approximately the same size as the original sampler. Now this has a much bigger frame, which gives you an optical illusion of the sampler being much bigger, but it is actually very, very close. As you can see, if I hold it, gosh, this reflection, you can see that that is practically the same size. And again, on the width of the sampler, gosh, you can see my iPad there on a stand recording and the view through my window. This has museum glass in, and that is picking up a little bit of a reflection, but as you can see, it's nothing like the reflection that's picked up with normal glass. Okay, so let's have a little talk about this sampler. Well, because it only uses 2 colours, this is a great one if you would like to have a go stitching with wool. Vina really enjoyed her experience of stitching with wool, and she worked on this sampler through the long, dark winter that they have in Iceland, and she said it was a really cosy feeling to be sat down with this gorgeous linen and the wool. And there's something very therapeutic about stitching alphabets. I greatly enjoy stitching alphabets. When you think about all the thousands, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of samplers that were stitched, and how many alphabets are stitched by little girls, it's sort of like an amazing number. It really is. With this sampler, again, this has some really interesting dividing bands. This one is very interesting. It's made up of a back stitch with little straight stitches branching off on the diagonal. This row is alternating double back stitch if you stitched it reversibly, which you don't need to on this sampler. So basically it's 3 cross stitches, 3 back stitches, and it works across. When you come down to this band, she's used back stitch again with a stitch branching off, but in a different direction this time. And then she's done an alphabet in 4-sided stitch, which is so pretty and so easy to do. And then of course there's this beautiful row across the bottom. These colours are so Christmassy, being red and green. Now, the sampler is a Scottish sampler. It couldn't be anything else looking at it like this. But we know that it was stitched in Edinburgh because Eliza recorded Eliza Nisbet, 1839, the 23rd of January, Edin, which is short for Edinburgh. Now, Eliza, her little booklet is one of our new formats. So this is a spiral bound booklet, and then you open it up and it goes into landscape, and we tell you a little bit about the background to the sampler, and then we start to have the graph. And what we've done, this is the entire width of the graph, so you can open the booklet and you've got it all there in front of you, or you can just fold it up, and it's quite compact to work from. If you're stitching on a frame, it's very easy to have on your linen as you're working, and if you're stitching on a hoop or in hand, you know, it's possible to hold something of this size. You will see that we provide conversions not only for the Auvert Soie fine de Busson wool, which it was stitched with, but Auvert Soie's 103, Soie d'Alger and DNC. These little booklets, they're proving to be very, very popular with needle workers. They are on very, very good quality paper, so they are quite robust. You know, we've had some fun coming up with this idea, and it's so pleasing to see that it's working well. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Eliza. Her stitch count is 117 stitches wide by 221 stitches long. Now, on 24 count, which is what the sampler was stitched on because that's the closest to the original, the design would be 9.75 inches wide by 18.42 inches long. If you stitched her on 36 count linen or 18 count Aida, because this is suitable for stitching on Aida, it will be 6.5 inches by 12.25. Or if you stitch this on 56 count, it would be 4.18 inches by 7.89 inches. The choice is yours. Now, we know, as we said, that this is Scottish. We couldn't find an Eliza Nisbet in the baptismal records of Scotland, but we could find an Elizabeth Nisbet being born and living in Edinburgh. And, you know, Eliza is an abbreviation of Elizabeth, so it's very, very possible that Elizabeth Nisbet is the Eliza Nisbet who stitched this sampler. And if that was the case, she was 7 years old when she stitched this sampler. And you can see that it is the sort of sampler that a very young child would stitch, maybe as their first sampler. They had to practice those alphabets. They learnt their alphabets through stitching them rather than writing them. And of course, this enabled them to mark their household linen, to embroider, you know, initials and monograms on table linen, bed linen. There was a purpose behind them stitching these alphabets. My purpose is to calm my nerves. So really that's about all I can tell you about Eliza, that, you know, she was most probably the Elizabeth Nisbet that was 7 years old when she stitched the sampler. The little booklet is available on our website, and it's available from needlework stores around the world. Supplies are on their way to our distributors, and you know, if you would like to purchase a copy of Eliza, you can go onto the Hands Across the Sea Samplers website and purchase a copy. Postage is only £3 worldwide. It doesn't matter where you live in the world and how many items you order. It's a flat shipping fee of £3, and if you live in the UK where we're based, it's £2. The little sampler is also available on the Hats website as an instant PDF download, and with the PDF you get 3 versions. You get a multi-page colour version, a multi-page black and white version, and a single-page colour version, which is designed to be used digitally on an electronic device. We're trying to give all our needle workers as many options as possible, so that, you know, we're catering for as many customers' needs. Okay, so this is the 3rd in our series of spiral bound PDFs. The second one was the beautiful Harriet Goddard, and here is Harriet again, having wonderful feedback about this little sampler. It really is adorable, and it's not a sampler that's going to take you very long to stitch. but you know, it's going to look absolutely fabulous on your sampler wall. The first sampler we released in spiral bound is the beautiful Louise Perette, which again is an alphabet sampler, but a continental one this time. And again, she's been extremely popular. So thank you to everybody who supports Hands Across the Sea samplers. We're always blown away by the love that's shown us from needleworkers. Okay, Eliza Martha Linford, which we talked about last week. Gosh, again, it's been overwhelming to hear the feedback from needleworkers, and you know, there's been so many pre-orders for this sampler that have poured in. Now with Eliza Martha Linford, if you want to purchase just the booklet, that's available on the Hands Across the Sea Samplers website for pre-order. But this booklet can also be purchased from 4 stores. That is the Attic Needleworks in Phoenix, Arizona, the United States. And to order from the Attic, you send them an email or you telephone them. Then it's also available from Needle in a Haystack in California, the United States, and Kathy has an online store, but you can also email and telephone Kathy as well. Then the booklet and the kit is also available from Traditional Stitches in Canada, and Janice has a online store as well. And then Carolyn in A Stitch in Time in Tasmania, Australia. In fact, you know, I don't know if you actually say Tasmania, Australia. Is Tasmania a separate country to Australia? You will have to excuse my ignorance. But Carolyn also has a online store. Now, the 4 stores are offering Eliza's sampler as a booklet or as a partial kit or a full kit. So you can buy the booklet, the silks, the DMCs and the linen individually from the stores, or you can buy them as a complete package. The 4 stores are offering a 10% discount for those that place their order by the 31st of July. Now, this is quite a logistical exercise, gathering the supplies for this sampler. You know, it is a time of linen and thread shortage, and there's a lot of hard work going in to gathering all of this together for needleworkers. So we do recommend that if you want to join the stitch along for Eliza, that you sign up sooner rather than later. For example, if you order the booklet from Hands Across the Sea, you are only pre-ordering. No money is actually taken until we start to ship the booklets, which should be on August the 31st. The stitch along will start on October the 1st, subject to everything coming together as planned. I would recommend that you place your order for the booklet. There were so many people disappointed with Anne Morrison when they missed out the opportunity of having the booklet and you know, just having it or joining into the stitch along. Now, if you have any queries about Eliza, you can contact me or any of the 4 stores. It's going to be a fabulous stitch along, and we're going to have such fun working on this beautiful sampler. Now, when I made my video last week, I said that I was going to show you some antique samplers this week. This is one that I started to stitch in lockdown, and I don't know why, but I put this sampler down to stitch something else, and I put it away, and I haven't been able to find it for a little while, but in my hunt for my partially stitched model of Eliza, I found Sarah's beautiful sampler. Isn't that a fantastic sampler? I already have the border stitched, so this is one that I'm really determined to get back to and finish. I love a Red House sampler. You can also see the back of the sampler, and you know the colours on the front have remained, you know, really good. And she was not a bad stitcher at all. There are a few long thread carries in places, but the little girl, she did very, very well with this sampler. Her name is Sarah Milthorpe, and she was 12 years of age in 1834. So pretty, really, really pretty. The loss of time is much, the loss of grace is more, the loss of Christ is such as no man can restore. I wonder what her life held for her. Just sometimes when you hold a sampler, you can really feel sort of like a whisper of those little girls in their work. You can imagine those little chubby fingered hands grasping their linen and working away and concentrating. There's so much more to samplers than just linen and thread. There really, really is. Now, we have a sampler in production that I am currently charting at the moment, and we are so excited. It's an Italian sampler and it's a red sampler. Isn't that wonderful? I was so excited when I saw this sampler, and I knew this is one that I wanted to add to the hats portfolio. So it's sort of like 3 samplers in one, and there really are some fabulous motifs in this sampler. I've charted this section and this section, and I've got most of the border in. And even though you know, you look at a sampler, when you start to chart it, just as when you start to stitch it, you really start to get intimate with the sampler, and you discover things that maybe you didn't quite notice when you were just looking at it. I love charting this band here. These are actually little people. You know, when I glanced at the sample, I thought those were just shrubs, but those are actually little people. This sampler was stitched by Maria Vincenza Lauriccia, and we found her. She comes from Puglia, which, if you look at a map of Italy, on the heel of the boot, that is where you will find Puglia, and it was a very poor area of Italy. My mother came from the north of Italy, a very poor area as well, but really my mother came from the opposite end of Italy. My grandmother, my nonna, used to say, those people from the south, I think the south and north of Italy probably didn't get on very well in my grandmother's time. She stitched her sampler in 1837, and the linen on this sampler, it is so fine. I'm only able to work, you know, like an hour or 2 maximum at a time, because my eyes are just, you know, they get tired very easily under such intense magnification. But it's worth it. This is going to be a very, very beautiful sampler, and I just love the shape. Isn't that fabulous? Can't wait to share some updates of this when it's started to be stitched. Okay, so I think that rounds up this week's Flosstube. What does next week hold? Well, we're really, really busy with our printers with some exciting new releases to come. There's a sampler coming out by the end of this month that so many people have been waiting for, and a lot of people thought it was going to be Queen of the May, and it may well have been if Queen of the May hadn't already been decided. Okay, so have a good week, stay safe, stay well, and if God is kind, I'll be back next week with some more needlework natters. Bye-bye.